Hey folks, welcome back to another video. You join me on a rather flipping cold day here in North Wales. Different spot to normal. I'm here at Bus Stop Quarry. Done a few videos in here before, I think, including climbing Fool's Gold, this cool line, E1. Did that in a video. Started raining when I was just over halfway, just past the crux, thankfully. The crux is pretty slippery. There's other cool routes, Beltane over there, Skinny at the top, did that back in the day. 7B, I think, 7B/7B plus. It's supposed to be easier if you're tall. I found the top quite hard though, actually. I'm not very flexible. It's got a move that might not be the crux for most people. It felt like the crux for me. Cool bits at the back there, the Natatak wall. Hey, there's all sorts really. Cool place to be. Today's video, if I can feel my fingers, because it is really cold, there's a bit of snow on the tops of the mountains today apparently. It's going to be about how to teach people to clean the anchors at a sport route. Right, I've done videos before on how to do it, but this one has a sort of a focus on how you might tailor that to your novice friend. Let's say novice, relative novice friend. There was an incident a few weeks ago now in America. They have these things called mussy hooks, which we don't have in the UK to the best of my knowledge. I haven't seen them anywhere anyway. And sadly the person who had never cleaned the top of a sport route before went wrong a little bit, and sadly they passed away from their injuries because everything went wrong and they sort of hit the bottom of the crag. So I know it's a slightly depressing note, but I think it's really important that we learn from things like that. I think that's so important. There's always been accidents in climbing, sadly there always will be, but we've got to take what we can from them. So you'll join me in a second on a little bit of wall over there where I'll sort of go through cleaning a sport route with the considerations on how we pass that on to our novice mate, because I'm a big fan of people teaching their mates or club type setups instruction, like from qualified people like myself. Yeah, of course I'm biased, I think that's so useful, but I'd hate for people to think that's the only way to learn. It's not. You've got YouTube, you've got mates, all these things, but it's really important that we do these things safely, isn't it? So whilst you can learn something off YouTube, for example, it's really cool if you've got someone to have eyes on and see that you're doing the right things and be able to, like, you know, that one, that's good for your confidence, and two, it catches hopefully anything bad happening that you've misunderstood or whatever. So yeah, join me on that wall in a second and we'll go through some stuff. Right, I'm set up on my bit of wall with my cold fingers. It's raining on and off, so I'm going to try not to be too long, but you know what I'm like on these videos. The first rule, I suppose, of teaching a relative novice to clean the top of a sport route, by which I mean strip all your quick draws, get the rope back, leave nothing behind and lower off safely, is don't do it. Avoid it. If they're going to top rope and stuff like that, or you know they're leading up it but they don't know how to clean a sport route yet, whatever situation, maybe just let them lower off. If they've top roped up, great, there'll be something set up, they can just lower back down. If they have led up, I'd expect them to know how to clean a sport route by that point, but if they have led up and they can't, they can just clip into the two quick draws that are maybe there already, lower off safely. I know that sounds silly, but you're just avoiding a whole load of hassle potentially, aren't you? So when they go up and come back down, there'll be some quick draws left behind or some screw gates or something. Well, suck it up and climb that route again and strip it for them. That might be the ideal situation, right? If that's not appropriate, then perhaps you could do a setup that I quite like, which is where I'm tied in already here, I've got ahead of the game, but let's say you've gone up already, you can pre-rig it, can't you? So let's say you're doing some top roping. I've shown this in other videos before. You actually thread that, but we know that we don't want to top rope through in situ stuff, because it just causes excess wear and it's expensive and it costs time to people to re-equip and stuff. So you might have seen a method a bit like that. Sorry for how echoey the board is. Do that up, and then actually there's very little wear happening on that ring. It's all going through here. People will say, oh, but it's not equalized and stuff like that. Okay, yeah, but it's bolts, so we're not really that concerned about that. Even if that did explode, yeah, it's going to shock that, but it's all metal and bolts, got some nice stretchy rope, not really concerned about it. Okay, assuming the bolts are all solid and all that kind of thing, that could be good. Now when the final person comes up the route, top roping, they just undo that carabiner, take the rope out of it, and then everything is pre-threaded. They don't have to do any untying, retying, any of that stuff that it was kind of where the errors can happen. Away they go. Referring back to that incident in the States on the mussy hooks. Now I haven't got any mussy hooks, but I can kind of simulate kind of what happened. I guess that we'll never know exactly what happened, but this seems to be the likely scenario. Something very similar had happened to that setup. Let's just imagine that's the hook. It's a snap gate, I know, but the previous climbers, I believe, had threaded the mussy hooks. There's two of them. I'm simplifying things here. They had put a screw gate in. Again, excuse all the echoey sound. The person had climbed up. They were doing exactly what they were supposed to have done by undoing this carabiner, right? They took their rope out, but sadly they had gone above the anchor. Like I say, this seems to have been what happened. They'd gone above the anchor, and as they'd leant back, it had gone over the gate of the two mussy hooks, which are just like snap gates on steroids. I've put a picture up, I should expect. It's unclipped itself. Such a sad thing to happen. So obviously that kind of went wrong there, didn't it? Is there anything we could have done to mitigate that other than not having them clean the route in the first place? One thing I'm a fan of is leaving the quick draw in at least one bolt below, right, with the rope in it. So then, even if all that had happened, they'd have taken a flyer, but they were still on belay, and they would have got caught on that clip below. Would have been pretty, you know, dramatic, but there could have potentially been a different outcome there. So I am a big fan of leaving that quick draw in, or re-clipping it, depending on quite what's going. If you're climbing up on a top rope on the side of the rope that's clean, it doesn't have drawers in, you can just leave them all clipped. Obviously, if you're, maybe it's a steep route or it wanders around, you're unclipping each drawer as you go, just re-clip the belay side of the rope into that last one or two. Okay, kind of makes sense, I think. So first rule, let's avoid it in the first place. Second rule, we can do something like this where it's appropriate, and on those mussy hooks, or if there's snap gates, maybe it's not an appropriate thing to do. There's all sorts of lower offs out there, so it's not like a one size fits all kind of thing. So we can't do, let's say we can't do those two. We want to actually teach them, because it's really important to teach people how to be like self-sufficient and not reliant upon, you know, their partners to do all this for them. Part of climbing, isn't it, really, being self-sufficient? So we've decided it is time to teach them. I've just said there's loads of different types of lower off out there. Lots of crags these days have something like this bolt setup that's here. Here at Bus Stop Quarry, there are no actual chain sets, so I've brought the board with me today, which I would do if I was instructing. I would not expect like a standard recreational climber to go and make one of these. Not like they're super money, but you know, it's a limited use if you're just like very, very occasionally, or it's a one-off. But for an instructor, it's a really useful thing to have. A little bit cheaper if there are bolts at the bottom, or you can rig this off other stuff. You can, you know, rig it off trees and all sorts. You could potentially buy like one chain set, or acquire it from somewhere, by which I don't mean to steal it, but like a second-hand one from a wall where it's worn out, no longer useful for climbing on, but could be good for demonstrating. Or like I say, you could obviously buy them brand new. I've rigged this off the bolts with a couple of Malons. It's not quite perfect because it's got the hangers, and the hangers wouldn't actually be quite like that, would they? But, you know, is it better than nothing? Yes. It's not perfect though. I am a massive fan of whatever you're going to do here, whether it's boards, chains, in situ stuff, doing it at ground level where there is no jeopardy. If we mess it up here, nothing bad happens, all right? That's really important, isn't it? I think it's also kind of important to be clear with that instruction, which comes from repetition and practice, but also like teaching on appropriate stuff. I've got like 2 different kind of chain sets here. There's loads more, like I say, but these are pretty common. Normal V setup, and then the kind of the offset setup. Now, just above me, there's a couple of sport routes, nice easy ones. They finish on this style of chain set. So it'd be a really good idea if I know that that's the route we're about to do, I teach on that one, at least to start with. You want to know them all eventually, don't you? But at least to start with, what's the point in teaching something that's a little bit different? Or I could teach just by threading 2 bolts. These are round ones, there's no edges. Potentially you'll get that at the top of some routes. But if I teach that, and then they come to that, do they know what to do? The other consideration is, will you be able to see them when they're doing that, right? I think that's very important too. Practice, practice, practice down here until they can virtually do it, their eyes closed and no prompting and stuff from you. Then you've got to, at some point, go and do it for real. The spot up there, it's great. It's a nice, easy climb, so they don't have to stress about the climbing. Plus, as the person teaches them, I can walk around the back. Nothing dramatic. I haven't even got to climb. I can literally walk around to the top of the crag. I could rig something up if I want to stay super safe on the edge, and that could well be a very good idea. But it's quite flat. I'm happy being up there and glancing across. So whilst that relative novice is doing all the cleaning stuff, great, I'm there, hopefully not saying a word, sitting on my hands, zip, not saying a word, letting them just get on with it, okay? If they look at me quizzically, or they say, what do I do next? Maybe rather than telling them, I say, what do you think? And they can give me the answer, because some people just aren't very confident with this stuff. You can elicit the answers from them. But I've been there the whole time, so if they start to do something really crazy, unclip when it's a really bad time to unclip, stop there, you can interject, can't you? So that's a great idea. You're not going to be able to get to the top of every single crag. Maybe that's not the right crag to teach this at then, or maybe I can get part way up on an adjacent platform or something, you know, so I can have a fighting chance of seeing, even if I'm not right on top. I've seen people doing this with binoculars as well, right? So you can actually like proper eyes on. Not quite as good because the communication's a bit harder. If you've done any sport climbing, you'll have probably seen this at the crag, where you've got a girlfriend or boyfriend at the bottom kind of thing. One of them's the really experienced one, their partner is at the top. Maybe they've never done it before, and they're literally shouting up, right, now unclip from that, thread the rope through that, da da da. I hate seeing that because it's just really hard, and one, it's hard to see, 2, the person up there is nervous and maybe a bit overwhelmed. It's tricky. By pre-planning some of this, you're going to make your life so much easier, right? So a few considerations. I'm going to run through the cleaning of the sport route, right? And I've done other videos on this, so you may well have seen them, but I'm going to try and bring up a few things that I think are important with those relative novices. I'm trying to say relative novice because by the time people are doing this kind of thing, not genuine novices, are they? It's all relative, of course. Right. When I'm demonstrating it, right, remember I've said I'm going to use this one because that's what's up there. So let's clean this up entirely so there's nothing extra confusing. And on my harness, it's raining again. What I really want is just the bare minimum of stuff. So I don't actually need that carabiner. I'm going to put in the quick draws as they would be at the top. Nice new Petzl Spirits from outside. They're the nice new ones with the little holes in that must make them a little tiny bit lighter. Just needed a few replacing. Right, clip and clip. So when they come up, let's say they're top roping, they'd already been in that. If they were leading, they'd clip into that. The idea is obviously to win everything back, leave it clean, expenditure free. Some of you experienced sport climbers might then get a quick draw and clip in with a quick draw. Is that safe? Done other videos on it. Yeah, used appropriately for sure. But is it like gold standard? No, it's not. So if I'm teaching a novice, I really want to do everything kind of as gold standard as I can. So I'm going to use a lanyard. This is the one I did a video on the other day, the Rock Empire one. I have a self locker on it. You know, you need some consideration as to whether that's an appropriate thing, but I think they're good. This one needs a little bit of a clean because it's a bit sticky. But you can go in to any hard point, right? teach to go up there personally. I could go under stuff would be even better though, wouldn't it? Perhaps because then it will make it easier to strip stuff at the end. So I might fiddle it into there, make sure that's done up. It is done up. That all sits there. Obviously it's a board, so it's flopping around. It's not going to be quite as perfect as that bolted on chain set, but you know, got to make do a little bit. But I'll tighten it up. Can't weight it properly because it's going to pull it all down, but I can just really highlight the fact that I want to be snug on this, okay? Properly weighting it. I'm in now. I'm still on belay. None of this shouting safe nonsense. You're not safe when you're up there. You're in hard or something like that. So I'm still on belay. My rope's through there and I'm into there. What's next then? So I grab the bite and I try and make sure to teach right from the get-go to take the bite from this side, so I'm not putting even more slack between that draw and here. So if I've got slack there, it's still kind of on the top rope, aren't I? Pull some rope through, pull some rope through, pull some rope through. Like plenty, not obviously flipping 40 meters worth or anything, but plenty. Squeeze that rope through, some shuffling required sometimes. Apologies again for the echoey noise. What do I do next? Pull plenty through so I can tie a knot, that's about right. Loads of knots you could do here, but you know, why not just choose a figure of 8 because it's a nice normal climbing knot, isn't it? I dress it correctly. There we go. Get myself my screw gates, the only one I've got in on my harness. Clip it into my belay loop. It must be belay loop, mustn't it? Because I'm going to undo the rope loop in a minute. I'm now on belay. Always was, never came off belay. I'm clipped into here, that's the second point, and I'm on my lanyard as well. So like 3 things in my mind there, okay? So I can lose one of them. It's going to be that original knot. My original tie-in knot. Okay, that comes undone. I can pull that through, trying to avoid the echoey noise as always. Some people at this point re-tie into this end. I'll only do that if the rope length is marginal. I think it's just clearer to let that dangle and to not have anything else to worry about at this point. Okay, I can shout down to my mate to take in. We're still on belay obviously, but I can take in and weight it. So it's like a sanity check, isn't it? Everything's tightened up, done up. My knot's a little bit messy. You know I don't like messy knots, so I can squeeze that a bit neater. I'm weighting this now. I'll shout down to my mate, on you, so they know that my, you know, safety is in their hands. And at that point, I'll clean everything up and all will become nice and clear. Get that there, get that there. Remember, my mate's got me tight now. I'm not on my lanyard anymore. If I'd messed up and stuff, my lanyard would have had me. But by going tight onto this, I've checked it, I'm good. You know that everything's okay. Come on to that. Lower away. Okay. There's a lot going on there. If you've done that a million times and you're not in an instructor mindset, it might seem like the easiest thing in the world. But to a novice, there's quite a lot going on. There's a few steps. There's not a load of complicated stuff going on in sport climbing, is there? So if they're not used to building trad anchors and stuff like that, whilst this is obviously different, they might not be used to using the rope in these different ways and stuff. So there's a few steps and a few things that could go wrong. So it's really important to practice it in a nice, safe way, and then ideally have eyes on. If I'm going to use the anchor that's the same as this, great, we've done that one. Maybe have a practice at that. Then maybe later on we're going and doing some different anchors so we can talk about different methods. We're not always going to be able to fit a bite through, for example. I've done other videos on all the different methods, but you know, teach what is appropriate. Like I say, it's not always going to be appropriate to teach anything. Suck it up, climb the route again, strip it yourself. Use that carabiner method where it's appropriate, but at some point we're going to have to teach our mates, our girlfriend, our boyfriend, whoever it might be, how to actually do all that stuff to have a nice time sport climbing. Okay, it's just part of the job, isn't it? That's what friends do, that's what clubs do, that's what instructors do if you go down that path as well. I hope that was interesting. I hope it provoked some thought. That's the idea of these videos nearly all the time, just to provoke some thought and hopefully it improve the safety of how you do things, right? If you've got questions, fire away in the comments below. You know I'm happy to answer as best I can. Takes me a while sometimes, but I do answer eventually. Click the like button, smash the subscribe button, find us on Instagram, Facebook, all the stuff I say every time. As I also say every time though, massive thanks for watching. More videos coming up very soon.